Just 1 minute in a room with this deadly material will kill you. It's called the elephant's foot, and it was created during the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. But what's crazy is that that's far from the most dangerous substance that's ever been found on Earth. Some are more common than you think. From poisons in food you've definitely eaten before, to a gas designed to be as painful as humanly possible, these are the 25 world's most dangerous substances. I can't hint at it and not tell you more. Lurking in the basement under Reactor 4 at Chernobyl is a solid mass of radioactive lava so deadly, standing near it in 1986 could have killed you in 5 minutes. The elephant's foot formed when the reactor exploded and cooked itself into a blob of fuel, metal, sand, and concrete. The mass was emitting 10,000 roentgens per hour. Just seconds of exposure triggered vomiting and confusion. At one point, the only way to study it was to fire a Kalashnikov rifle at it and hope something chipped off. It's still dangerously radioactive to this day. Oh, and burning through the floor. That's why a group of men had to race against time to drain the flooded basement below it by hand after the accident. The fear was that if the mass reached the water, it could have triggered a massive steam explosion powerful enough to destroy the other reactors and blast radioactive debris across Europe. They stopped it in time, but the elephant's foot is still there. The next spot on today's list was reserved for Tetrodotoxin, the stuff that shows up in sushi if the chef doesn't know what they're doing. That's why Japan requires a special license just to serve pufferfish. This neurotoxin is heat stable, so cooking won't help, and even a tiny dose can paralyze your muscles, including the ones that keep you breathing. Between 2001 and 2006, Singapore saw over 50 cases and 8 deaths. One contaminated batch in Bangladesh killed 17 people in a single outbreak. What's even crazier is that the toxin isn't made by the fish. It comes from the bacteria the fish picks up in its diet. And it's not just pufferfish. You'll also find tetrodotoxin in blue-ringed octopuses, certain frogs, and even some newts. And since there's no cure, your only shot is quick supportive care, usually involving a ventilator. Polonium-210 takes a different route. It likes to creep through your system cell by cell until your organs start shutting down. 1 microgram, a speck you won't even be able to see, is enough to kill you. It was used to kill the former Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko. In 2006, he drank a cup of tea at a London hotel, went home feeling unwell, and died 3 weeks later. The investigation turned up traces of polonium all over London, hotel bars, restaurants, and even planes. Over a dozen people were exposed just by working in or passing through those spaces. That's the scary part. It spreads easily, lingers on surfaces, you never know you'd been exposed. The only upside is that it's hard to get. The downside? Oh, not if you're a government. Cesium-137 is a radioactive isotope that mimics potassium in your body and likes to settle in your muscles and liver. Once it's in, it keeps releasing beta and gamma radiation, hitting your cells from the inside out. The first signs of exposure usually look like flu, nausea, fatigue, vomiting, and then things get worse. It damages bone marrow, destroys your immune system, and raises your cancer risk right across the board. In high doses, it can cause internal burns, organ failure, and death. After the Chernobyl disaster, most long-term contamination came from this one isotope. It was also the main contaminant after Fukushima in 2011, and cleanup there will take 30 to 40 years. There was even an incident in 1987 when 2 men broke into an abandoned cancer clinic and found a glowing blue powder in one of the machines. They took it with them. Within days, people were vomiting, losing hair, and developing burns. The cleanup was massive. Authorities demolished dozens of homes, dug up neighborhoods, and tested over 100,000 people for exposure. So, you can run into it without ever stepping foot near a reactor. Old machines get scrapped, storage protocols get ignored, and sometimes glowing powder ends up on a bus seat or in a neighborhood where it's not supposed to be. We should also mention Botulinum Toxin, simply because no list like this is complete without it. It is the most toxic substance known to science. Just 2 nanograms per kilogram can be lethal, meaning a single gram could kill over 1 million people. Luckily, cases are rare. In the US, about 145 are reported each year. Globally, it's closer to 1,000, but outbreaks still happen. In 2023, a mass canning mishap during the Rugby World Cup in France hospitalized 15 people and killed one. The toxin comes from Clostridium botulinum, a bacterium that thrives in low-oxygen environments like home-canned vegetables, garlic and oil mixes, or even foil-wrapped baked potatoes. It attacks the nervous system and can paralyze the muscles used for breathing. Most people only know it from its cosmetic treatments, but when botulism strikes, it's a medical emergency and a reminder to be extra careful with anything you are preserving at home. Things get even uglier when the attack moves from your cells to your entire nervous system. Sarin is a nerve agent, a clear, colorless liquid that evaporates into a lethal vapor. It was originally developed as a pesticide, but it didn't take long for militaries to realize how effective it was at disabling people instead. Once it enters your body, even through the skin or eyes, it blocks the enzyme that controls muscle movement, so victims lose control within minutes. Eyes water, lungs spasm, muscles seize. Eventually, breathing stops. It was used in the Tokyo subway attack in 1995, where it killed 13 and injured over 1,000. It's also shown up in conflict zones like Syria. The most terrifying thing about it is that it only takes a few milligrams to kill, and because the gas is heavier than air, it settles close to the ground where people are most likely to breathe it in. Okay, take everything terrifying about sarin, but make it slower, stickier, and deadlier. Unlike sarin, VX, another nerve agent, doesn't evaporate quickly. It's thick, oily, and designed to cling to skin, clothing, and surfaces, which means it can stay dangerous for days. Just one drop on your skin is enough to kill you. It works the same way as sarin, by blocking the enzyme that controls your muscles, but because it doesn't disappear into the air, it's even harder to escape. VX was originally created in the 50s and stockpiled as a chemical weapon, but it's also been used in assassinations, most famously in 2017, when 2 women were tricked into smearing it on Kim Jong-nam's face in a Malaysian airport. He died within 20 minutes. But it's not just the lab-made stuff that's out to get you. Aflatoxin B1 comes from Aspergillus flavus, a fungus that loves warm, damp places and the food we store there, like peanuts, corn, or grain. It's one of the most carcinogenic substances known to science. Just a few micrograms can damage your liver cells, mutate your DNA, and kickstart cancer. In places with less than ideal food safety controls, like parts of Africa and Asia, outbreaks have killed hundreds of people. It's rarer here in the US, but it's still here. Low-dose exposure still happens through contaminated imports or feedstock. The worst part? You can't see it, taste it, nor smell it. It's not some cartoonish green fuzz. It's microscopic, so you could consume it without even knowing. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid about 100 times stronger than morphine, and just 2 milligrams, think a few grains of salt, can be fatal. It was initially conceived as medication for severe pain after surgery, and under strict medical supervision, it still has legitimate use. But the real danger comes from the illicit kind, made in underground labs, smuggled into the US, and pressed into fake pills that look like other medicines. There's no quality control. Some pills contain a tiny dose, while others have more than double the lethal amount. In fact, 42% of pills tested by the DEA had at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl, enough to kill. That's how people die without even knowing they took it. And the numbers are horrifying. In the US alone, fentanyl is now responsible for over 70,000 ODs a year. Now let's cover a substance that's been used as a chemical weapon. Phosgene is a gas with a bland little name and a pleasant, farmy smell. People say it's like fresh cut hay. But don't let that fool you. It was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths in World War I, not because it's the most toxic gas out there, but because it tricks you. One lungful might feel fine at first, then hours later your lungs start filling with fluid. And despite its war record, Phosgene is still being made. 2 million tons each year. It's used to make plastics, pesticides, even pharmaceuticals. Because it's so dangerous to transport, most companies just make it on site as needed. But leaks still happen. A DuPont worker in West Virginia died after a 2010 release. Another fatal leak hit a South Korean plant. And in 2023, It was released during the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Just 25 parts per million over 30 minutes can be fatal. So, if you ever smell hay in a chemical plant, run. Not to be outdone, Batrachotoxin doesn't just block nerve signals, it forces sodium channels to stay open, frying your nerves and stopping your heart almost immediately. Just 1 to 2 micrograms per kilogram is enough to end a life. It's famously found in poison dart frogs, especially Phyllobates terribilis, the golden poison frog which carries enough toxin to kill 10 to 20 people. And here's why it matters. Those frogs, along with some of the beetles and birds that carry the toxin too, are starting to pop up in the exotic pet trade. In 2018, a European rescuer got mild poisoning symptoms after handling a wild-caught dart frog. That kid at the pet store could be next if protections aren't in place. There's no antidote. Batrachotoxin causes paralysis, heart arrhythmia, or death within minutes. Back to nerve agents. Their story actually started a lot earlier. The first two ever developed were Tabun and Soman, both created by German scientists before and during World War II. Neither were deployed in battle, but they were mass-produced and stockpiled in secret. Soman is especially dangerous. It acts within seconds, and it binds so tightly to your body's enzymes that antidotes can be rendered useless if help isn't received in minutes. And while these chemicals are decades old, they're not just Cold War leftovers. Syria was accused of using both in recent years, and traces of Tabun were found in chemical weapon attacks as recently as 2013. I guess monsters will always find a way. Just ask Sergei Skripal. Sergei was a former Russian spy living in the UK when he and his daughter collapsed on a park bench in Salisbury in 2018. They'd been poisoned with Novichok, a nerve agent developed in secret by the Soviet Union to be deadlier than anything before it. Not just more toxic than VX, but harder to detect, easier to smuggle, and impossible to trace back. Both of them survived, but the woman who accidentally found the discarded perfume bottle it was hidden in didn't. At the time, most of the world had never heard of Novichok. The Soviet Union had never admitted to creating it, and Russia denied it existed at all. But the attack forced everything into the open. We now know there are multiple variants, some more stable than others, and all incredibly lethal in tiny doses. There's no antidote. Treatment depends on catching it early, and even then, survival is far from guaranteed. Moving on. Mustard gas marked a turning point in the history of war. First used in World War I, it was designed to maim, terrify, and linger. Soldiers exposed to it often didn't feel anything at first. Then came the burning skin, the blisters, the blindness, and the slow, choking damage to the lungs. Just saying that reminds me of Samuel's death in Legends of the Fall. Remember that scene? Okay, maybe not. Let's leave that visual. Those exposed could take weeks to die, and those who survived were often left with lifelong injuries. Unlike earlier gases, mustard clung to clothing, soaked into soil, and stayed active for days. By war's end, it had injured over 1 million people. And just like Tabun, it didn't stay in the past. Mustard gas was used again during the Iran-Iraq War in the 80s, and stockpiles still exist today under strict international control. Hydrogen cyanide smells like bitter almonds, but not everyone can detect it. Thanks to a genetic fluke, a lot of us can't smell it at all, which makes accidental exposure even riskier. It's fast-acting, too. One deep breath can shut down your cell's ability to use oxygen, basically suffocating you from the inside, even while you're still breathing. It was used in gas chambers during World War II, where it killed over 1 million people. But it didn't vanish with history. Today, it still turns up in metal processing, plastic manufacturing, pest control, and even fires, especially when synthetic materials like vinyl or polyurethane burn. Alright, have you ever heard about the poisoner's poison? Sounds serious, right? Thallium is a soft metal that was once sold as rat poison, roach killer, and, weirdly, a cure for ringworm, until people started dying from it. Less than 1 gram can be fatal, and you don't even need to swallow it. Just handling it with your bare hands can be enough for it to be absorbed through your skin. These days, it still turns up in certain electronics, glass factories, and lab settings, but the risk isn't limited to workers. It usually appears as a fine, colorless powder, which makes it dangerously easy to miss. Once it's in your system, It hits the nerves, liver, kidneys, and hair follicles. Victims can go numb, lose their vision, suffer internal bleeding, and in some cases, cardiac arrest. Now, if you want something even harder to trace, but just as devastating, there's dioxin. TCDD, the most toxic kind, just sort of happened when factories started making herbicides and disinfectants in the mid-1900s. The first time it got global attention was in Vietnam. Agent Orange, sprayed during the war, was contaminated with TCDD. Millions of people were exposed and hundreds of thousands died or developed serious health conditions, including US veterans. Then, in 1976, a chemical plant explosion in Seveso, Italy accidentally sent a cloud of it over nearby towns. Entire neighborhoods were evacuated, livestock had to be buried in pits, and Europe's chemical safety laws had to be rewritten. Today, dioxins still show up thanks to industrial waste, incineration, and even wildfires. They enter the food chain and can lead to chloracne, immune suppression, hormone disruption, and cancer, especially non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, soft tissue sarcoma, and lung cancer. Arsenic is tasteless, odorless, and ridiculously easy to miss. That's exactly why it became the poison of choice in the 19th century. It occurs naturally in groundwater and soil, which means millions of people, especially in parts of South Asia, still get exposed just by drinking well water. Long-term exposure leads to skin lesions, organ damage, and multiple types of cancer. In high doses, it can trigger vomiting, seizures, and death in just a few hours. It's now regulated in water supplies across most of the world, but arsenic-based pesticides, wood treatments, and contaminated rice still show up today. And then there's PCBs. You've probably never touched a PCB directly, but you've definitely eaten it. Industrial waste dumped them into rivers and lakes where they sank into the sediment, got picked up by small organisms, and moved right up the food chain. So yeah, that sushi roll probably has trace amounts. Same with meat, dairy, even some plants. They were banned decades ago, but they're not going anywhere. They don't break down, they don't wash away, and they've been linked to cancer, hormone problems, and immune issues. There's no safe level of exposure. They weren't designed to poison people. They were just really good at what they did. Resist heat, last forever, and never break down. PFAS took it one step further. If you've ever used a nonstick pan, eaten fast food, worn waterproof anything, or just, drank water, congrats, you've probably got PFAS in your blood. They're known as forever chemicals for a reason. They don't break down, don't leave your body, and they've been linked to cancer, thyroid disease, fertility issues, and immune dysfunction. PFAS have been part of manufacturing for over 70 years, but it's only now that we're realizing how far they've spread. They've been found in drinking water, soil, even in rainfall. You don't even have to live near a chemical plant. If you're alive, well, you're already exposed. It's not flashy or dramatic, and it won't kill you on the spot, but lead is still one of the most dangerous substances you'll find out there, because it's everywhere. Even though it's been banned from paint, pipes, and gasoline in most countries, it sticks around. Old homes, aging water systems, contaminated soil, and the worst part is that kids are the most vulnerable. Just a few micrograms in their bloodstream can lower their IQ, cause developmental delays, and trigger behavioral issues. In short, you don't need a lead overdose for it to ruin your life. It builds up quietly in your bones, brain, and blood, and once it's there, it doesn't go away. That's why pediatricians still push for lead tests, even in places that should be safe. Asbestos, on the other hand, came to life as the golden child of construction. It was fireproof and cheap, so it got packed into ceilings, walls, insulation, brake pads, floor tiles, just about everything. And for a while, it didn't cause any problems. But what no one realized, or more accurately, what many people ignored, is that asbestos is basically made of microscopic razors. Inhale just a few fibers, and they lodge in your lungs forever. Over time, they cause scarring, respiratory issues, and mesothelioma, a rare aggressive cancer with no cure. To this day, millions of older homes, schools, and buildings are still full of it. Renovate without proper gear, and you could stir up a toxic cloud without even realizing it. As for ricin, all you'll need is a crushed castor bean and some bad intent. The castor oil plant is completely legal to grow, and castor oil itself is sold in stores for everything from hair care to laxatives. But inside those glossy seeds is one of the most toxic natural substances we know. Ricin shuts down your cell's ability to make proteins. No proteins, no cell function. And without that, your organs begin to fail. There's no antidote, and symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain can take hours to appear. Since 1980, at least 50 human cases of ricin poisoning have been reported worldwide, most of them accidental. People mistook the seeds for something edible, used them in folk remedies, or simply got curious. 6 of those cases were fatal. So yes, it's been used in a few famous assassination attempts, but the bigger concern is how easy it is to extract and how often people come across it without realizing what they're handling. Plutonium-239 is a different beast altogether. It powers nuclear bombs. Just 6 kilograms, about the size of a grapefruit, is enough to level a city like Nagasaki. And once it's made, it remains dangerous for 24,000 years. Even without a blast, it's deadly if inhaled as dust. That's why it's locked away in military-grade containers, buried underground, and guarded like gold. And yet somehow, people still lose track of it. In 2017, Idaho State University discovered a 1-gram sample about the size of a paperclip had disappeared from their nuclear lab. No one knows where it went. That same year, someone stole plutonium from an SUV parked outside a San Antonio Marriott. It wasn't enough for a bomb, but it didn't need to be. If you're not working in defense or hauling radioactive cargo, you're probably fine. But the fact that we still stockpile it, and occasionally misplace it, should keep all of us awake at night. And finally, if you thought I'd end this list without mentioning uranium, you have misjudged my commitment to the cause. I mean, it gave us the Hiroshima bomb, which killed thousands of people. And that was just in the explosion. Most of the after effects are still being felt. And everyone's got their own stockpiles. The United States alone pumps out over 2,000 tons of it each year. And while most countries do their best to guard it, it's worth mentioning that between 1993 and 2022, there were over 4,000 incidents where radioactive material went missing, got stolen, or was trafficked. Yes, uranium made the list more than once. Most of the uranium we dig up will be around for longer than Earth's existed, billions of years. So nothing else on today's list lasts longer. It also has a nasty habit of resurfacing. Between the 40s and the 80s, more than 30 million tons were mined on Navajo land, and hundreds of sites were abandoned without cleanup. Today, over 500 still leak radioactive waste. The danger with uranium isn't just how lethal it is. It's ultimately its legacy. It keeps resurfacing because of negligence, poor regulation, war, and sadly, profit. And every time it does, it drags decades of radioactive consequences along with it. And that's where I'll leave it. Did I cover them all? Let me know if there's something else that should have made the list. But before you go, let's see what stuck. Quick trivia. In 1987, a glowing powder found in a scrapyard caused a major radiation disaster in Brazil. What was it? A. Uranium nitrate. B. Cesium-137 chloride. C. Plutonium dust. Or D. Strontium-90 oxide. Drop your answer in the comments, and let me know if you think there are more disasters just waiting to happen like that. And if you're in the mood for a few more facts, 100 Facts Nobody Wants You to Know is packed with strange science, obscure history, the kind of trivia you never knew you needed. Thank you so much for sticking with me, especially at the end. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and I'll catch you next time.